welcome back to my channel, Mental Health with Melissa. First things first, if you're new here, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for more content as I post new videos every single Sunday and Wednesday. Subscribing to my channel really helps me get mental health information out there to our communities of color and tons of free Lcsw test prep. I have a social work study with Melissa Lcsw test prep program available for purchase in the description box below. Wow, I'm surprised I said that. That's like a tongue twister for me. I always mess up on that. Anyway, so today you're wondering why I have all these books. I, by popular demand, have some suggestions for you on what to read if you are thinking about starting a private practice, or if you're already in private practice and you want it to be more lucrative, and some hints on that. And if you are a new therapist, or even actually a seasoned therapist, and you want some ideas on interventions, or not even interventions, but just having a better knowledge base on certain things that may come up a lot in therapy. So I have about 6 or 7 books that I want to go over. And so let's go ahead and not waste any more time and get started. So the very first book that I want to recommend is called Letters to a Young Therapist. This is by Mary Pfeiffer. So if you are either an associate therapist, licensed, newly licensed, or even still in graduate school, I highly recommend this book. This book is a series of letters actually that were written by a licensed therapist to her supervisee. And so she has letters in here that talk about what her recommendations are for certain things, and it's personalized and it's professional, and it's a very easy read. It's really fast, and it's just a very sweet book. And I think there are a lot of different things that I took away from it, because I'm a licensed clinical supervisor, and I was a supervisee, and I just felt like there was just a lot of realness and authenticity in this. And so if you get a chance to read something that's like really easy to read and short, again, I would say this is a really good start for you. So the next 2 books that I'm going to talk about are books that I am going to recommend for starting a private practice, or again, if you're in private practice and it's been a little bit slow. So the first book is called The Profitable Private Practice by the author Melissa Da Silva. And the reason why I like this book is because she literally breaks it down for you. She tells you everything that you need to do and everything that you need to know to build and start and manage a private practice. And so she tells you about insurance, if you choose to do private pay, marketing, what you need to do to, like, the first steps that you need to do. So I would highly recommend this, since I get a lot of questions on starting a private practice. There's not one thing that I can tell you, no 1 or 2 or 3 things that I can tell you that will tell you exactly what you need to do to build your private practice. You're going to have to study, and you're going to have to read books. And I know that's not a lot of people's favorite thing to do, but it's what I had to do, and it really helped me. So again, this is going to maybe be your little golden standard to doing that. And in addition to that, I would recommend the Harvard Business Review Entrepreneur's Handbook. And as you can see in here, it says everything you need to do to launch and grow your new business. So while this is not specifically tailored for private practice, it is tailored for your growing entrepreneur. So if you're starting or thinking about starting your own private practice, you're an entrepreneur, you are a business person. And if you have no history of doing business, or taking those business courses in undergrad, or any of those master classes, start here. This is going to tell you everything that you need to know about what will make or break your business, and also like just an essential resource for getting your private practice off the ground. So I highly recommend this, again, if you're new to private practice or even considering it. Next book that I want to recommend is, it sounds a little bit morbid, but trust me, it's not. It's a really important read if you're a therapist, and that is Death, Religion, and Law it's a guide for clinicians, and it's by the authors Peter Hutton, Ravi Mahajan, and Alan Kelleher. And this is basically a book about the different types of religious and spiritual beliefs. It gives you an idea of kind of what some of the end of life practices look like, what some of the major spiritual beliefs are towards end of life, and how it affects the people that are in that religion or identify with that spirituality. And it's specifically made for clinicians. And the reason being is because, of course, as clinicians, we're not going to have this like expertise on every religion out there. I mean, we may from our personal experience or background, from what we identify with, but that doesn't mean, and from the people that we've worked with, but that doesn't mean that we know everything. And I'm not saying that this book tells you everything, but it gives you a pretty good idea. And I think there's a really good like excerpt in here that says something about like to provide health services to our patients is to acknowledge their spirituality and their religious beliefs, because if not, we're leaving out a very major component. And so this is not just pertaining to death, it's also pertaining to like the mental health services we provide to our specific clients. And I think there's also information about those identify as agnostic and atheists in here as well. And even the I think it's one of the first or second chapter that talks about the reason why it's important to discuss faith. So chapter 2 is Faith, Why People Believe, and the Need for Tolerance. So this is really helpful. It gives you more information about maybe what to be assessing when you first meet with a client, and just makes you a better overall holistic clinician. Next book that I want to share with you is called It Didn't Start With You. This is one of the newer books on intergenerational trauma. It's by Mark Wolin. I really loved this book. It goes into detail about how how genetics and DNA are actually changed to the descendants of people that have experienced trauma or other like traumatic losses or really horrible sorts of like experiences. And so I thought that this was really helpful, especially me identifying as a woman of color that comes from a family of immigrants, first generation, but also because a lot of my clients come from immigrant families and identify as BIPOC as well. And so this helps us kind of validate and normalize some of these experiences and identify when they're happening, and then kind of gives us an understanding of what the next steps are to do. So if you work with a large population of BIPOC individuals and immigrants, then again, going to be a really helpful book. But also, I mean, obviously generational trauma can happen to anybody, not just BIPOC communities. So that's also important to keep in mind. And then lastly is the book that I most recently read and finished. And I might be biased because I'm a grief counselor and that's my specialty. But I think that this is going to be really helpful for those of you that don't really have any experience with grief counseling and want to learn more. And what I like about it is it takes into account both the neuroscience of grief, but also the emotional aspect of grief as well. So it's called The Grieving Brain, and it's by Mary Frances O'Connor. And I really love the way it's written, because although there is a heavy science-based sort of theme to this book, it is written in a way in which I think anybody can understand. And so I really appreciate this author, and I really love just like everything that This author, Mary Frances O'Connor, shares about her personal journey with grief and being such a specialist in the field of grief research, which is amazing because I have heard of and have worked with a lot of grief therapists, but not grief therapists that also have a science background in studying the neurology of grief. So that's her. So if she ever watches this video, Mary, if you ever watch this video, you're great. So thank you for that. So I would say that those are the books that I would recommend. I read all those books. And lastly, of course, if you haven't buy yourself a DSM. This isn't something that you're going to sit down and read page after page, obviously, but you're going to want to have it on you if you're a clinician and if you are starting out in grad school. So let me know if you have any questions in the comments section down below. I hope this was a helpful video. Until next time, managing mental health matters.